Hello and welcome to Shaking and Sipping. This is the show where we shake, stir, or otherwise mix up a variety of cocktails and other mixed drinks, take a sip of them, and see how they are. Now, normally we're working our way through the IBA's list of classic official cocktails and going through the history of those each week. However, this is not replacing this week's IBA episode. That is still happening. Instead, this is a specialty segment called Trying to Recreate a Drink Badly. Now, why would we want to recreate a drink badly? Well, we wouldn't. But let's say, for example, that last week we were out at the fantastic cocktail bar Rob Roy. While we were there, we had a great drink, and we want to recreate that. Seems simple enough, and certainly has happened to me before. However, let's add to this example that we were there with a group of friends, so we weren't sitting at the bar or facing the bartender. I didn't order the drink. I merely had one sip of it that someone else ordered. I don't have a picture. I didn't take notes. And I was on my third drink at the time, which was a rather absinthe Sazerac. So my palate was not in top condition either. So, do I think we can correctly recreate this drink with no notes, pictures, or a detailed recollection of the drink's flavor? No. Do I think we can make a drink that is good and uses at least some of the same ingredients and maybe is in the right ballpark? Hopefully. Alright, so the drink at Rob Roy was called the Dark Heart, and ingredients are listed as Espolòn Añejo, cold brew, banana, agave, and porter. Now that's an interesting group of ingredients, right? Tequila and coffee, that's interesting. Porter as an ingredient, that's interesting as well. The description, I think, also tells us a lot that's confusing to me. So it reads, this is a fruity, punchy tequila espresso martini for those long nights full of sultry music and darker intentions. That last part, obviously not super helpful, but fruity, punchy tequila espresso martini. Now, what does that mean exactly? Because we don't really have the ingredients right to just sub something to make an espresso martini here. And it wasn't served anything like an espresso martini. So it was not in a coupe or a martini glass. It was in like a rocks glass on the rocks. So it's not even trying to sort of look and feel like an espresso martini. It also, there's a coffee element, right? It says cold brew, and I definitely tasted coffee. But an espresso martini is incredibly coffee forward, right? It's just vodka, espresso, and coffee liqueur, so it's just coffee. There's a lot else going on. So again, I don't think we can just sub something one-to-one. So what are we going to use to try to make this work? Well, we have a few things. First of all, the only ingredient they give us exactly is Espolòn Añejo, which I don't have. Espolòn Añejo is a great tequila. I like it. I don't have any in stock. So I have two others. I grabbed two Añejos for us to try. Neither one's a perfect match, but let's see if maybe they'll work. So we have the Tres Generaciones. This is Sauza's premium line. A lot of people hate this. I like it, but it's a little bit alcohol-y, and it's not incredibly complex. And then we have the Senor Rio Añejo. This one is a little bit barrely. It's aged in cognac barrels, and that overtakes some of the other flavors a little bit, but I think there is a little bit of a banana-like funk, which kind of makes sense because we're asking for banana in here later, so maybe that makes sense. Then it called for cold brew. Now, again, I was not watching Mark mix up the drink. So was that like a cold brew concentrate? Was that just espresso, but they called it cold brew? I don't think so. That doesn't make sense. Or was it a coffee liqueur, right? Like an espresso martini would have. And of course, while I don't stock Kahlua, I do stock the best coffee liqueur, which is a cold brew coffee liqueur. That's Mr. Black from Australia. So maybe it's that. If not, I went to the trouble last night of making a batch of actual cold brew coffee from some Cafe Vita Cafe del Sol. So we have that as an option as well. Finally, or not quite finally, then we called for banana. I'm assuming that's creme de banane. This is Driad's Creme de Banane. It is not very good. It's also not an ingredient that I like or use that much anyway. So Tempest Fugit makes a much better version of this. It is 3 times the price, and I use it in 3 drinks a year, so I have the Driad. Agave. I've got some agave syrup, like thick, like honey, like agave in the kitchen. I mix some with water to make something more measurable and pourable. So it's just agave and water. Hopefully that'll work. And then porter. Now at first I thought maybe this was something I was unaware of, and there's some porter syrup that people use and talk about. I don't think so. If it is, I'm still unaware of it. So I think they just mean a porter, like a beer. Did 2 different variants of that as well. I've got Deschutes Black Butte Porter. This is just a straight down the road porter. It's Deschutes' is like original beer, and so that should hopefully work. If not, I wondered if that would be volumetrically wrong. I wanted to make kind of a porter syrup, but I also normally when I make a beer syrups, which I do sometimes make stout syrups for like adult hot chocolates to add to. Maybe that'll be a winter episode. Normally you add sugar, both to sweeten it, but also to thicken it. I didn't want to add sugar here because we're specifically calling for the agave as our sweetness element. And also the creme de banane is quite sweet. The Mr. Black's a little bit sweet. So I just cooked down the porter for a while. It's still very liquidy, but it's more concentrated in flavor, so it won't be as volumetrically as much. We'll try it both ways. Very simple process. I just cooked it until it just simmered for a long time while stirring. And then I made a hamburger as well, which is not a required part of the process, but is not a bad idea. So with all of that rambling about ingredients and whatnot out of the way, let's go ahead and try to just mix one up first without really knowing what we're doing. All we have to go on is that it's like an espresso martini. It's a fruity, punchy espresso martini, right? So let's start there. So in IBA spec espresso martini, spoiler for a much later episode, calls for 5 centiliters of vodka, but we have tequila, so let's get that going. So 5 centiliters, 50 milliliters, that's 1 2/3 ounces. Let's grab the right side of this. And why I didn't grab a bigger jigger than this is a question to all of us, because this has no good measuring lines to do 1 2/3 ounces. But 1 2/3 ounces of tequila. Then 3 centiliters, or 1 ounce, of coffee liqueur. Now again, that would normally be Kahlua, or something like that. Whoops, let's spill some. But in this case, we're going to use Mr. Black. And then it would be 1 centiliter of simple syrup. So that's about 1/3 of an ounce of simple syrup. In this case, we have our agave syrup. Okay, about 1/3 of an ounce of that. And then normally you would add 1 shot of espresso, so about an ounce of espresso, give or take. Now we're clearly not going to add that, because I don't think we need both cold brew liqueur and cold brew coffee. So do we want the porter, the banana, or both for that proportion? I say we split it. So let's do 1/2 ounce of the creme de banane, then let's shake it, and then let's add in the straight porter after we shake it. 1/2 ounce seems like way too much of this. But I guess with the coffee, maybe. Let's find out. And creme de banane, of course, like most banana-flavored things, tastes nothing like bananas. That's partially because it's an artificial flavor, And partially because what that artificial flavor is trying to match is the Gros Michel, or Big Michael banana, which went extinct in a banana epidemic many years ago, which is why we switched to the Cavendish, which tastes nothing like it. So if you ever wondered why banana flavored things don't taste like bananas, they actually do. They're supposed to be really accurate to the flavor of a banana, just not the bananas we have around anymore. Let's shake it. All right, and then I was reminded by my friend who ordered it, Nicole, when I talked to her today, that there was a cocoa rim. So I did a ridiculously thick cocoa rim on one side. So if we have to dump this out and remake it a couple times, I'll still have some cocoa to go with. Let's throw a cube in the glass. All right, now let's open up that porter. Where's my bottle? And let's actually just pour our ½ ounce of porter right into our serving glass. And then let's strain our drink on top of it. Okay, so based off of the very limited memory I have of the drink, I think this is a little bit darker than it was. Let's give that one stir. Let's remember to bring our bar spoon onto set, and then let's give it one stir. Okay. So, variant 1 of the Dark Heart. Let's try it on the non-cocoa rim side first. Oh, that nose is funky. Oh my gosh. It's banana and chocolate and coffee and then tequila. Okay. So right away, that's actually very good. That's weird. It doesn't seem like those flavors should play together. So I kind of thought this would be harder. I don't think I've gotten the drink right yet. There's too much banana. There's not enough coffee. But super drinkable as is. Banana's a little bit overpowering. But the coffee and tequila with the agave, just this sweet fusion, beautiful. You don't taste the porter at all, but I assume that, it's got some malty notes kind of undergirding things. It has a little bit of its own sweetness. I assume that's just working in there. Let's try a little with the cocoa rim. Yeah, it's not necessary, but it's not unwanted. Okay, so let's try another version. And we're going to be a little bit unscientific here because we're going to change 2 variables at once. All right, I'm going to dump the excess out of my shaker. Then we'll try this once more. Okay, so I know there's 2 variables that I want to change here. I think before that, let's do a quick tequila taste test. I don't really want to swap 3 things in one drink, but let's just kind of see if it would make sense to. Also, the best part about buying Senor Rio is this amazing cap. This is much better than the tequila is. The tequila itself is okay, but it's overpriced. Okay, let's grab just a hair of the Sauza, or the Tres Generaciones, and a hair of the Rio. Okay, so this is what we just had. Yeah, the nose is just so alcoholic. That's really what lets this down. Yeah, the flavor's nice. You get some clove, you get a little bit of banana, you get some mint, some leather. But the nose is just smells like rubbing alcohol. Much sweeter Um, Vanilla, barrel, a little bit of funk. I think we're actually going to stick with the Tres Generaciones, at least for this round. I don't think we need that additional sweetness or barrel. Okay, so we again need 50 milliliters of tequila. And okay, so first thing we're changing is we're going to try using regular cold. Oh, that was not 50 milliliters. Again, why did I grab such a small jigger? No one will ever know. Okay, 50 milliliters of tequila. Then we are going to go ahead and switch over to using real cold brew as opposed to the Mr. Black liqueur. So let's grab 1 ounce of that, 30 mils. And then we'll stick with the same amount of the agave, though we may actually need to bump this up since we were getting some sweetness out of the Mr. Black that we are not now. I don't know, maybe. So let's grab 1/3 of an ounce of this. And then, okay, here's our first alteration. No one needs 1/2 ounce of creme de banane. Let's go with 1/4 ounce creme de banane. I think that is still going to be very ample. Okay, yeah, let's go with that. Let's still stick with the real porter. Yeah, let's get our ice back and shake it. Okay, so I've just strained any liquid that had melted from the ice we just used. We're just going to reshake right over that. See you in a second. All right, let's stick with the 1/2 ounce of porter. And then let's strain that in here. Let's give that just a little stir once more. Okay. All right, variant 2, less banana, actual coffee instead of Mr. Black. Okay, so much improved. The banana is no longer taking everything over. A little more coffee. Still not quite enough coffee. I want a bar spoon of Mr. Black in here. It's like a 1/2 bar spoon. Let's get a little more than that. Oh, and that's way too much. So, perfect. So somewhere between not enough and too much. What does that do? Ooh, that improves it. I don't know if it's just because of the extra sweetness or the taste of that coffee. Goes really well with the cocoa now. Okay, I think we're drilling in here. I doubt that's how they did it. I don't think they were using both coffee and coffee liqueur, but I think that might be how we're sticking with it. Okay, one thing I want to see is how the porter is affecting this taste exactly to get a feel for what we might need to tweak on that. So what I want to try real quick, let's get rid of the tequila here. Let's try just a hint of my concentrated porter. My very tequila-y concentrated porter. Oh, that's so interesting. That's actually got some real coffee notes to it. No. I mean, porters do, but this is incredibly coffee-y. I didn't even try that before. I'm fairly confident this is not what they did But what does it do? Bar spoon. No, I don't think so. Ignore everything about making that syrup. You don't need that. It's not bad. It's just it's not doing anything that we need in this drink. It's a very sweet coffee, little bit of malt, but it's not doing. I'm just gonna ruin this drink by keep adding things to it. I just want to see what these different things do. Put in a nice healthy glug of porter. My guess is that this is gonna do something totally different than adding that porter syrup. It's not gonna be just like doubling up. And it's not, yeah. So that actually now takes away a little bit of the sweetness from the porter syrup, which is a good thing. It's just a smooth note. We're starting to lose the banana entirely now, which is losing the fruit punch element of that description. What was the... A fruity... What? A fruity, punchy tequila espresso martini. So this right now is a tequila espresso thing. It's not fruity punchy anymore. But I have nailed it with tons of extra porter at this point. Let's just do a quick glass swap to, this was version 1. Yeah, that's not good. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great. Okay, let's think this through. All right, let's go for variant 3. I think this is going to be my final one in case it either comes out awful or I have a burst of inspiration during this. So we're going to keep a lot of things the same as the last one, but we're going to not then add just tons of crap to it at the end. So we're going to start with the same base we've started with for everything else. We're going to start with 50 ml or 1 2/3 ounces of our Tres Generaciones. I keep forgetting I have to re-pour that. And then we are going to add 1 ounce of real cold brew. And then we are going to add 1/4 ounce, maybe a hair more than a 1/4 ounce. Like 5/16 ounce of the creme de banane. And then we are going to add a little more of the agave so that we don't have to add the Mr. Black back to bring in a little bit of sweetness. We are going to go with, say, I don't know exactly how much that is. Maybe it's close to 1/2 ounce. It's a little over 1/3 ounce, maybe a little less than 1/2 ounce. Yeah, and let's shake that. All right, grab some fresh ice. Okay, and I've got a fresh glass with just a nice modest sort of cocoa rim on it. Let's get a cube in there. And let's get our porter. So we were using 1/2 ounce. I want to cheat that up a little bit as well. Something like 3/4 ounce. Let's strain that. So I still think this is a little bit darker than what they served, but I do like this color. It's got a really nice translucence to it that I'm digging. That's actually really good. Let's try that with the cocoa. Yeah, that's really good. I think if I had the Espolòn Añejo, that would be an improvement. Espolòn Añejo has all the rich, interesting flavors you'd expect out of an Añejo, but it's a little bit sharper. It's a little bit brighter. And I think that would poke through better, give us a little more of that fruity element going on. I think between the Mr. Black and the cold brew, I think I prefer it with the cold brew, but it is a little bit drier. And the cold brew that I used, at least, I don't use super dark roasts, so it's missing a little bit of that deep espresso hit, which I was getting out of the Mr. Black, that I don't get as much of out of the cold brew. I still prefer this flavor, I think, in here. But I think if you wanted to recreate something more like what they did, it's either Mr. Black or they're using a cold brew concentrate, like that one. What is it? Chameleon, Salamander, whatever that one is. Their darkest one, to really get those earth tones that I'm not getting quite as much of here. So if you wanted to recreate this, I think pretty close to being accurate would be 1 2/3 ounces or 5 centiliters of tequila, preferably the Espolòn Añejo. Then about 1 ounce, 3 centiliters of either a stronger than this cold brew or Mr. Black cold brew coffee liqueur. Then a little more than a 1/4 ounce, so that'd be like 8 milliliters of creme de banane, the Tempest Fugit if you have it, but the Driot will work. A little more than 1/3 of an ounce, so maybe about 12, 13 milliliters of an agave syrup. This is about 2 to 1, just like the agave honey type stuff mixed with water. Shake that over ice, strain it, and then a little more than 1/2 ounce of Black Butte Porter or something similar. You don't want an incredibly thick stouty porter, something like this. Stir it over ice, cocoa rim if you like. That's pretty close to what I think the Dark Heart might have tasted like. But what it definitely is a good drink that I'll enjoy finishing. Until next episode, cheers.